right.
Cheers.
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 Oh, wow. This new table is eye contact.
Eye contact.
Welcome back,
For
baby.
those of you listening and not watching, you should be watching on YouTube. But Cuzzin has built a spaceship of a table.
Yeah. It's going to take off. We're going to outer space, baby.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Tabby's trying to join the space race. So,
Yeah, trying to get in with Elon and Jeff Bezos. So today we have a very special guest. Cuzzin, I'm going to let you do the introduction. You guys go way back. So.
Yeah. So today we have a very dear friend of mine, a homie,
Very dear.
a bestie, one of the many men in this world that I love. We got Kristian Echolos of Creative Society here on the podcast today. Kristian, how you doing?
Good to be with you guys.
We're glad you made it out. A little background on Kristian that I'll give and let him jump in wherever he wants. Kristian is the designer for most of our beer labels. I would say 98% of them at Magnetic South. He designed the Tabbi collaborative label as well. You usually see most of them behind us on set. Kristian's been with us since the beginning, doing our website and a lot of other stuff. So yeah, we brought him on full time here. So he's reached out and hit some other breweries now. You know, Kristian, how you like being in the beer industry?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, anytime you get to do a label, it's, creativity is where it's at. There's so many aspects of the things I do as far as, whether it be web design or, pay-per-click online marketing, things like that. There's just not a whole lot of, while you can be creative, strategically, there's just not that opportunity to be able to actually create something cool.
Well, and I remember some of our early stuff used to be pretty hard for me to describe to you what I was looking at. Now we pretty much get stuff in one or two shots. So there's definitely been a development between just the two of us in the creative side. Because it can, you use words like, hey, I want it dark. And you'd send a label and it would be dark. But it wasn't the dark that I want. I wanted like mysterious. And
One thing that I really appreciate about graphic design, I gave zero direction on this to Cuzzin of just like, hey, we're doing, you're brewing a beer. We're going to put a Tabbi coat on it and distribute it through South Carolina. And, a brand kind of takes its own direction in a way, like as you start to, as a brand develops and with the right designer, it can really take a cool shape. And so it's fun to see somebody that's external to the business kind of get a perimeter of vibe and then come up with something like this. And this is very on brand for what Tabbi is. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. And it's kind of even like what he's saying, there's certain ways that things can be explained and said. It's the new thing now is AI, and it's like, all the graphic designers are like worried they're going to lose their jobs. But in order for that to happen, the client would have to accurately describe exactly what they wanted to the point that the AI gets it. So I think we're okay. The designers are going to be around for quite some time.
how do you feel, speaking of AI, how do you feel? How do you use it? How do you feel it like it's going to take over the world in your world,
who's to say what could happen, many moons down the road. But, right now, I think as far as AI is concerned, it's definitely a tool. And that's kind of the thing that I get from it. It's like anything else, a tool can be used for, any kind, any type of situation project you're doing, you're going to have a different set of tools.
You can buy the best wood shop that money can buy. But if you don't have the right craftsman in the wood shop, you're not going to make beautiful furniture.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I taught, at a couple of the colleges, or I say colleges, the tech schools around here doing their web design, Photoshop classes and that kind of stuff as an adjunct. And that would be the way I started all my classes. I'd be like, hey, look, I don't care if you use a Microsoft, a Macintosh, if you know, whatever window, you know, whatever you're using, it, you know, it's kind of like building a house. I don't care what kind of hammer you got. I want to know, can you build the house?
Yeah.
So that would always be my opener to where, you know, to let people know, don't get hung up on specific tools.
Yeah. So, Kristian, are you from the Greenville area?
I am from Spartanburg.
Spartanburg, okay. So upstate. And how did you get, kind of walk us through a progression of the different, there's so much to talk about, from your music career to graphic design. Where do you want to start in that journey? And
I'd say, you know, as far as, I've always been, you know, a creative. And people always say, you know, well, what do you do? And then my best answer is I'm just an artist.
Yep.
You know what I mean? At the heart of everything, I'm an artist. So that's kind of where it starts. Anything creative, any kind of expression, anything that helps tell stories, you know. And so I entered into the ministry and ended up doing, you know, leading, you know, the worship. So I was a worship pastor for quite some time, and which was really cool because I got to experiment with all sorts of things. You know, and as far as all the different tools, even, you know, down to the sound setup, the lighting setup, it was always so much fun. So through that, though, in that industry, I'd always, you know, had the art thing, and I kind of got into, once the HTML websites came out, I got into that because I was like, cool, I could put my art online, you know, type of stuff.
yeah.
And so from there, it just progressed, you know, from one, you know, great opportunity. I got to, you know, work at a local mega church around here. I mean, I say mega church, but, you know, one of the larger ones.
You were working with the Gemstones?
We had like a mall. And so, you know, it was great. It's like, I'm going to work in a mall, you know. So that was a whole lot of fun. And like I say, through that, you know, whether it be the leading the worship, whether it be, you know, the lighting, the sound, and then, you know, progressed into all the, you know, the graphics and the website. I was managing all that. So I really kind of got to experience all of it. Through that, started teaching the college, and then from there, I was able to slowly but surely get myself to the point where it's like, okay, I can quit all these other side gigs and just focus on Creative Society and whatever else I want to do.
What was the, I mean, I feel like that's, in the last 20 years, there's been a massive influx of people saying, I'm going to go be a graphic designer or a website designer or whatever it is, especially with some of the technical schools in the upstate. But, I mean, you were kind of in it before there was a heavy presence of anybody doing it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, working at, this was at Spartanburg Community College, I had wrote a curriculum because, you know, they're like, you know, here, teach this curriculum as far as the web design and all that kind of graphic design and all that goes. And I was like, I tell you what, how about I just write something for it? So they actually paid me to write it. I thought that was the coolest thing
That's
ever.
cool, yeah.
It's not anything I want to do in life, but I'm glad to say I did it.
Yeah.
And so even from there, because like I said, I was an adjunct. Well, the president and all these people got together on the actual, you know, academic side, and these businesses were coming to them as these kind of jobs were just starting. And they had a list of what they required of somebody coming out to be a webmaster or run the graphics or whatever. And they were like, hey, wait a minute, this cat over here in the adjunct, pull that thing up. And it was like the curriculum I wrote was the exact thing that all these businesses were requiring. So needless to say, had a meeting with him, you know, and actually started the process of, you know, putting that together for the academic side, which would have been cool. But, you know, through various circumstances and, you know, I don't want to dog the school or anything.
Dr. Kristian over here, Dr. Echols.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know, it was just real fun though to see that, like you said. I mean, it's, you know, I saw exactly what was required to make that kind of a job happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I taught at a youth center when I was a kid, and there is something special about teaching to a certain age that I definitely would not enjoy doing it now, but I think at the time and the place that I did it, it was what like my mind needed. It was a lot of fun teaching, and because I taught some computer learning to kids who had never touched a computer, so it was, to see their world open up to what the internet was when the internet was starting. Right, this is in 2000.
Is that back when we rode dinosaurs to school?
Okay, Grandpa. No, but teaching was fun. Not the place I'd want to be. So so minister, teacher, now graphic designer. Any other fun hobbies?
Definitely music, things like that.
Oh yeah. Why don't you tell us a little about the music?
The music.
Because the music, Christian's a dear friend of mine. The music, of course I love his art. We talk, 5 times a week, at least 2 drunk dials a month.
Those are always fun.
We are each other's. Oh man, I wonder if I have the voicemail. We are each other's drunk dial. You
should probably play that.
It's 8 p.m. on a Friday, and someone's like going home. They're usually never late. We're not 2 a.m. dialing each other, but we always pick each other's phone call up. And I think I was already asleep. Like this one particular Friday night, and he had called me at like 8 o'clock, and he was like, "I'm gonna call the cops on you. How you doing this to me?"
Do you have that voicemail?
Yeah, I was actually looking to see if I could find it because he had sent it to me.
Didn't I email it to you? I don't think it's in my voicemails. I don't even know how to find voicemail.
I thought I voicemailed it.
How did
I got it somewhere? I can pull that thing up. It's hilarious. Well, but the thing was, that was actually right after Christmas, and I'd been watching Fred Claus.
He had sung a little song, and it's just like, man, you gotta capture that and put it on a track.
So, what kind of music are you into, and how did that start?
Man, I'm kind of a whore when it comes to music. You know what I mean? I like it all genres, all types. A note is a note, right? And music's the universal language.
Well, let's talk about the one group that you're in right now, the Reno Gang.
The Reno Gang, which is basically we used to go to this festival a lot called the Skunk Fest. And me and my wife had started coming, and it was the first time we'd ever seen Billy Strings. First time, he was a kid, wasn't he?
He was playing with Don Julian. They were like a little trio.
Well, the first time it was just him and Don Julian. Then they added the bass player guy.
Yeah, you're right.
He sang one of my grandpa's songs called "Long Gone," and he sang it was amazing. And I was like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's my grandpa." So, because it's not often. You hear that kind of stuff.
So was your grandpa semi-famous in music?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's
bluegrass royalty.
We call it the Reno curse, though, because it's like he was almost almost there. Yeah. And which he's great, and we can talk about him a little bit. But so back to the real story of Billy Strings, and he rocked it. When I say he rocked that song, he rocked that song. And while he was doing it, I was like, that's what I should be doing, is playing that music. Because I didn't, growing up, nobody knew who Don Reno was. You could always ask him, you could say, have you ever heard the song Dueling Banjos? And everybody's like, yeah. Well, my grandpa wrote that.
That's amazing.
He did it with Arthur Smith. Another true story is he wrote that song, and he had a little bet with Arthur Smith going. Not sure what the bet was, but it was $200. And he didn't really have the money to pay him at the time, and so he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the rights to Dueling Banjos. So he gave Dueling Banjos the rights to that song for $200. That's amazing to think.
But
that,
he's
right?
still your grandfather's still credited on that, right? I think.
Yeah, he is. He is. And there's all kinds of debates about it, but the true story is it was a duel between a 5-string and a 4-string. Which one was better? And so, because Arthur played the 4-string, my grandpa played the 5-string. So that's kind of, there's the history on dueling banjos anyway.
You heard it here, baby. Tabby
So
Hour
it's-
podcast.
So it's naturally, I mean, it's in your blood.
Yeah. And so when I saw Billy Strings do that, it was like, I got to do that. So I called my uncle, which would be his, one of his sons, Don Wayne Reno, who plays the banjo. He was a founder, one of the founding members of Hayseed Dixie. Anybody's ever heard that group? The ones that do all the AC/DC songs, bluegrass. And so I said, hey, Don Wayne, I did a little small demo of Long Gone myself and sent it to him, and he's like, now we got something we can work with. So we essentially took a lot of my grandpa's old songs and kind of redid them and rocked them up a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Made it a little bit more of the Hayseed Dixie style,
Sped them up, made them dance tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
So that's the Reno gang, so look that up.
they're good. They're
It's
great.
it's a lot of fun.
We've had them play at the brewery. We've had them play at our private parties. Well, I guess the whole gang hasn't come to the brewery.
Yeah. But there's been bits and pieces of,
Yeah.
all of it mixed around with the various parties and events and things. And we did just do the Spartanburg Music Trail concert at the auditorium. So that was a lot of fun. Packed house. Never will forget the guy playing bass said, and the crowd roared. Jason Israel.
So another fun backstory from me and Kristian. So my dad's sister, my aunt, who is my relative that I moved down here to South Carolina to live with, her daughter married Kristian's best friend. So her daughter's Heather. Kristian's best friend is Dee, who's my cousin.
And I officiated the wedding.
Oh,
Yep. So so when I moved to Spartanburg, Dee was in Charleston. So, obviously similar mindset. People start hanging out. So, I started seeing Kristian all the time. And then when it's not me. It's not me.
I meant to put that down. I was searching for that audio.
Um,
We'll definitely have that coming up.
His phone rings every
Every
time we
podcast.
push record.
yeah. And then so the brewery launched and it was started to need a website. Kristian did even so the lager label on the side with the multicolored can, like that was our first labels. It was the reach out to Kristian that, hey, can you start putting some of this stuff together? And he was like all in for it. And now it's opened up doors where, how many brewers are you working with now?
It's
3,
probably maybe
5?
it's been about 4 or 5, I think, guess in total.
Yeah. So, that door will just keep expanding to probably a funner side of graphic design, I would say, for you.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely a whole heck of a lot of fun, and especially too now that I kind of got the gist of what's going on. Your spatial requirements, things like that. It's real easy to get in there and then just envision, and it's so much fun too. Because how many people buy beers just because of the label?
Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
in the craft beer world we live in now. You just walk around and you're looking at the labels. It's like, that label's cool. I'm going to get it just because of that.
Well, it's a very specific, it's not a picture that you view flat or on a screen. It's got to be wrapped. So it's kind of almost leading into the next. It's a different level of creativity, I think, to be able to, because people are only seeing that much of the can.
At one given time.
You can see his progression of some of the stuff where, gas station sunglasses is in the middle. And if you look at the new Raven that we just came out with, the focal point that you would angle would be, the head of the Raven. And if you look at some of our earlier stuff where we started doing wraparounds, it was not as clean. It did get, it's all that progression, right? As our beers get better and go further out and further away, because beers and evolution will always change. I think Kristian, his art gets refined and stronger, and the communication piece is obviously key.
Oh yeah, that's the communication. That's everything. And the cool thing about doing the beer labels is the fact it is a whole lot. There's a whole lot more creativity, and there's a whole lot more exploration that can happen. Whereas with a lot of my clients, they've got very specific brands. It's got to be this way, and so there's not a whole lot of out of the box moments you can have. Whereas Adam will be like, I've got this vision in mind. This is what I see when I close my eyes and dream.
And then I gotta try to tell him that. So I
gotta try to show it to him.
When Discord first came out with whatever that AI is, what you let me use it.
Yep.
And so I got on there and tried to use it to tell him what I wanted, and it was so bad. It was like this is not it at all. Just because I don't know the right words. Kristian, now we have our own line of communication of how I need to tell him how I want this to look. He can figure it out from there.
Well, it's kind of like I'm playing your AI.
Yeah, you are my
You need an AI guy.
AI.
You gotta have an AI guy.
I need someone just to type the prompts in for me.
You need a Neuralink. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Just type it for you.
Yeah, if I could just close my eyes and those things are drawn. And so that's most of my stuff that I get done with Kristian now. It's just hey, this is what I'm going for. You figure it out. Because I've just learned that's easier. Yeah, he's the artist. He should be the one who's, it's his profession. If I want him coming to tell me, hey, this is how I want you to make my beer. It doesn't work that way. But so back to Kristian. Music, graphic design, pick one. If you had to do one the rest of your life, and if your music career took off and you had to drop doing the graphic stuff, or if your graphic design, you started working for a big brewery that you just had no other time but to just do their stuff, and you couldn't play music anymore.
Oh man, that's tough. I don't think I could do either.
You'd always have to do them both.
Yeah.
Do you ever play music while you're drawing stuff?
Well,
are you playing your guitar while you're yelling at your AI?
Well, music helps me create. I've got a studio at the house with just about any kind of instrument you can think about. So even my kids, that's like growing up in a music store, which is where I learned to play, about most of the instruments I can play outside. My mom always was like, you got to learn to play the piano. If you learn to play the piano, you can play anything. So
Is that true?
take that for a piece of advice. Well, the piano encompasses all forms of music. It's the rhythm, it's the melody,
You learn
it's
chords,
the bass,
right?
it's the chords, it's the harmonies, and you're actually doing everything at once. So then that just transfers to anything else.
This
Now
is-
you know music,
What do the foot pedals do? What's the actual reason for those?
We talking about a piano or an organ?
Either. I have no
Well,
idea on either.
Well, the organ can get pretty complicated. But with a piano, you got the one that's the sustain. So when you push it down, it instead of it going pop,
Okay. Yeah.
it'll kind of hold it.
Give us a C.
Wah. It's probably not right. Don't stick a tuner to that. Somebody's gonna go back later with their iPhone, their tuner app. They're gonna be like, "Was that really a C? What note is this?" Yeah, and then the other two, one of them does what calls dampens the keys, which kind of puts them down, so it's easier to play a little bit quieter. And the other one,
Doesn't it make it real short, like thick? Or is that what that dampen one does?
No, it's with none.
Oh.
So that's just playing it how you play it to make it sound like that. And then that last one just sustains the upper portion.
And then what's the middle?
And the bass, so the bass isn't sustained.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that's the three pedals on an acoustic piano.
What about on a grand? Same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same thing. The only difference is the way the box shape is done with it. Gives a different sound.
Yes, sir. And then we got a peanut gallery question. Oh. I'm just gonna. Today's mess with Tucker day. So you play music. Your grandparents played music. I'm assuming your parents played music.
Oh yeah, the whole family.
So what about going down in the lineage? Do all your children play music?
Yes, they do. Like I said, they all live in a music store.
Yeah.
If it's just always around you, and it's always accessible. I mean, if you want to learn to play the guitar, never put it in a case. Always
Or
leave
hang
it
it on
out.
the wall. Don't hang it on the wall.
Well, hanging on the wall is pretty sweet because it's easy just to walk up and grab it, and
So
that's
what
where
is
all mine are.
what is your favorite instrument?
The one that I guess I get the most released from would probably be the drums. It's the drums.
Just because
I
you're
mean,
banging on
because
shit?
you can
Anger
just
release?
beat the hell out of it. I did at one church. I was the youth pastor. Me and my wife were the youth pastor there at the church, and the drummer was out one day, and so I said, "Well, I'll fill in on the drums." I never will forget the pastor when it was done. He goes, "I tell you what, you got them drums saved. You beat the hell out of them." I was trying to get the full sound out of it.
Yeah.
So I would say that probably for me.
What instrument you feel you're the best at playing?
Drums.
Drums, for
Drums.
sure,
Drums.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things I could just sit in any situation.
Yeah, you don't need to know shit to play the drum. No,
Well, as long as I know
I mean,
there's a whole.
in our band that we're in together.
Yeah, you do a great job.
Yeah, I play. Sometimes my drum set is a pair of flip flops on a guitar case.
I want to come to like band practice one night and just hang out. And I know how to play 0 instruments, but I just want to come hang out with you
you
guys and
guys
watch you play.
practice?
It depends. If
No,
we got
probably
something
not.
coming up, we do. But for the most part, nah.
I mean, I've been to a couple parties at the Echols household, and the children take over, and not like children like they're kids, but like all like Christian and Dave Bird and Jason, like all their kids come over and just start playing too, and it's just like, how are
They're
y'all
amazing.
this good? Like,
Well, you guys
You
just
know.
grew up around, you grew up around music. Kids grew up in a music store. You grew
there's
up
a
around
nail
music.
right here hanging out the table. I about ripped my shirt 10 times. I forgot to get a hammer. Whoever built this table did a janky job.
Who was that?
I don't know. This some dude.
Make sure there's nothing on my side of it.
This is our first podcast, the new table, so we gotta work some kinks out.
Version 1.0. So, with your grandfather being the dueling banjos, that's probably the name of the episode, right? The history of the dueling banjos. He was probably playing, was he playing music with a lot of cool people in the day? or
Every one of them. I can still remember back. I was probably 7 years old, just a wee little kid, and they'd always have a festival. And even back in the day, for me, bluegrass was one of those things. I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I wouldn't sit there and listen to the whole concerts. There was bluegrass band after bluegrass band, but these festivals where it would be like Earl Scruggs, Arthur Smith, any of the the most famous bluegrass people you can think of. Bill Monroe, all of them. So they would be at these festivals and they'd be playing too, and to the point where actually. My grandpa and Arthur Smith, and I can't remember which band it was then what they were doing, but they actually got all us kids up there on the stage to dance with them and stuff. And but the cool story about all that is backstage, and again,
the green room.
Yeah, I'm 7 years old. I have no clue. I am in the room with absolute complete legends.
Were they legends at that time when you were a kid, or were they still like? Was the scene still growing?
Still bootstrapped.
Yeah, these festivals, they would be huge. They would be huge.
Like
they're
they're taking
for-
private buses. They ain't
They're
they
paying.
ain't driving their own car.
No.
playing
Of
for
course, they
15.
went through the season of strap the bass to the top of the car, but
That was
no,
the
this-
70s.
Yeah, at this point, no, they had full on tour buses and stuff.
So they're playing for 10, 15,000 people.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know, I think the festival we went to, it maybe not been that many, but it was at least up there around the 6, 7 range.
Have you
You got
ever?
any,
Go ahead.
you got any cool stories of
Well,
like
that's what I was of like what.
backstage? You
Well,
know,
see, and
on
that's what I was
tour?
going. That's what I was going to talk about. Is the one thing that my grandpa said to me that just I've never forgotten. It always sticks out, and it makes perfect sense. Backstage, like I said, with the legends. You
Legends.
just think of any
Royalty.
legend. I mean,
Royalty,
even
yeah.
I mean anybody. I mean, even the, even
Steve
the,
Martin, ever Steve Martin back then?
No, he wasn't doing it back then. But like the original people that wrote. Can't even think of their name now, but wrote the I am a man, that song. You know which one I'm talking about? Even those people were back there, and I hate that I can't think of their name. But like the Osborne brothers, Rocket Top, all of those people. And I'm sitting on my grandpa's lap, just a wee little guy, and he says, "Son, no matter what it looks like backstage, you just make sure you get out there and put on a good front." I was like, that's amazing advice. And I've lived my life like that. I even make the joke, I'm kind of like the UPS guy. When it, I might not have it,
Is
but when
this
it
in the
comes,
front, party in the back?
well, when it comes time to deliver,
You're always late.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there.
Oh, that's FedEx.
So who is? Have you ever had like where you've gotten kind of the butterflies of like, oh my gosh, I'm about to meet this person, or I've just met this person.
I did.
Starstruck.
Well, there was so my uncles always carried on even after my grandpa passed away, and they actually got more into the country music side of things. Matter of fact, my uncle Ronnie, and we can get more into that in just a minute, but he actually played with Merle Haggard. He was his right-hand man for like 14 years. There's a video that if you look it up, and I don't think they'll hate me for telling this story, but if you look it up, it's Merle Haggard, Johnny Paycheck, and Willie Nelson, and you'll find my uncle playing the harmonica. He actually hands the guitar to Willie Nelson, which was one of my grandpa's guitars, and Willie Nelson cuts a lead on it. You can find that video online, and it's a big stadium, and it's alive.
Which uncle is this?
This is Ronnie Reno. So, which he's made his own name, written songs for Conway Twitty and all kinds of famous people, and he's done real well.
Yeah, I mean these are the biggest names.
Yeah, I mean
history.
I mean, and he of course he had a show that he did. Even played with like Sierra Hull. We were working on the second Reno Gang album, and he came over and brought a bunch of his friends. Jason Israel was with me. Jason Israel, the whole time up there, we were singing the song Nashville Cats. I don't know if you know that song, but look it up. It's a good one. It's all about the fact that everybody in Nashville, it's like there's 1,200 pickers in Nashville, and every one of them can play a guitar better than I will. And Jason, he cracked me up because that's exactly what happened. Everybody that came over, it was a big party. We were recording. It was a whole blast of fun, and everybody there could just Jason was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna go bust my guitar up against the wall."
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a musician, but if I'm hanging out with Johnny Paychecks and Merle Haggard, I have a big imposter syndrome.
The fun story that I wasn't telling, that I was questioning, should I tell, and you might want to edit it out, but if you watch that video, watch Johnny Paychecks. He said they were doing just a crap ton of coke out back.
I mean, it was the 80s.
And Johnny did more than everybody else. And if you watch him, when he comes out on that stage, I mean, he's just getting it. I mean, he's like,
So you got to meet and hang out with all those guys.
Oh, well, to the fun story that we were talking about telling is the fact that, and again, I'm a kid. I don't have a clue about, who I'm meeting or who I'm around or anything. So it was my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt, which is Ronnie's sisters and mother. We went to go visit them or meet them when they were playing. We didn't actually go to the show. We were just going to go meet them at the motel. So Ronnie and Merle. Yep. Well, actually, this place was fancy. And back then I was like, wow, this is kind of fancy for, what I was used to. And so Merle and my uncle were sharing a room. And, of course, you know, these three older ladies and, you know, one little son come busting up into the hotel room, and Merle's in there, and it's like, you know, hey, we're here to hang out with Ronnie. And I was like, I'm kind of bored. I'd like to jump in that pool. And Merle looks up and he goes, I'll take you down there, son.
This is Merle Haggard.
This is Merle Haggard. And everybody's got a Merle story. Let's just preface it with this.
I do not have a Merle Haggard story.
You've got to have a Merle Haggard
You know
story.
what my Merle
if it's-
story is? I tell your Merle story, and that's my Merle story.
Your Merle story is now my Merle story.
Everybody's got one. Everybody's got one. Trust me. And I mean, they're always fun. But anyways, he jumps up. I'll take you, son. And I was like, and of course, again, I'm a little kid, and I'm like, I don't have anything. I don't have any swim trunks with me. I wish I'd known. I'd brought my swim trunks. He said, nah, man, just swim in your underwear, son. Take your pants off and let's go. So he literally for 2 hours sat out there with me, and it might have even been longer than that because he was doing whatever he was doing over there. He was having a good time.
Drinking, smoking
And
cigarettes.
he's hollering out at me, do this kind, because they had this bridge over the pool. And he'd holler out, and of course I was, you know, in the swim team and did all the diving board stuff and fun stuff. So I mean, I love to do little flips and things. Even as a kid, you know, of course I was smaller and could do it then. But he would be hollering out, do this kind of a flip. Now try a double. Just, you know. So that's my Merle Haggard story. He actually even gave me a little knife, which my son now has. That, you know, has his little, you know, has his name on it.
And
I
he
like, well,
was,
that's cool.
I mean, he was at least national star at that point.
Yeah, I just thought he was the coolest old dude I'd ever met. I was like, I like that guy in your band, Ronnie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. Dude.
It was just a
You were a
guy in
kid,
my
it was just
uncle's
a guy
band.
you
I
knew,
mean,
yeah.
it's like, I like that guy in your band. Whoever that guy you was rooming with, that's the coolest guy I'd ever met. Most of those guys are jerks.
It's good to, yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that, you know, somebody at that level is just pretty laid back and cool. And a lot of them are.
Do you think in today's world it would have been the same? Laid back, coolness, you know.
It's so like publicized now, and there's cameras everywhere, and people are always on stage. I feel like back then it was so genuine.
Well, everybody's different. I will say this though. I mean, I've met a lot of people. You meet some that are, you know, as far as entertainers are concerned, some at great levels, some at low levels. It's always going to be the same. It comes down to the person.
Yeah.
And even in Nashville, there's a certain group of people, and you know them right when you start talking to them because they start hollering out however many numbers of albums and however many millions of songs and however many different people popular they played on, did whatever, and you just already know there's something that instantly inside of you goes, man, why do you?
Yeah, but we're talking about, I mean, these
Shut
are,
up, I don't care.
Yeah, as opposed to
if you're just a grinder, you're just going to be out there grinding it and playing songs and being a studio musician, and you're like just living the life in Nashville. You ain't talking shit about it. You're just doing it.
and you're a super nice person.
yeah, you look at guys like Chris Stapleton who are just, you know, they're writing songs for people. They're a pretty genuine guy. But those were trailblazers back then. I mean, there wasn't that. Like country music didn't exist until those guys created it. And then now there's been other guys that have come in and, you know, filled in the blanks, but those guys were creating that industry.
Well, and I don't know if maybe I'm sticking on the same thing that you're actually getting at, but another cool story, or not a cool story, it's not a good story at all, but another story that's...
that degraded fast.
Sorry. Back to the original thing with my uncles, you know, so they would play and do their songs up front, and then they would be the band for somebody big. Like, perfect example is Randy Travis.
Jeez.
And
Cool.
we went and saw them. They opened for Randy, then they were the Randy's band. That dude didn't talk to nobody.
Oh.
Like, he had this woman standing outside and she was the boss. Everybody stays away because it was like, we're not gonna get to meet Randy Travis.
You know, I can be a little. Part of me is like I can see the other side of this because it's
and
so,
I can too.
It's so
but not,
over-inundated.
not all the time. Like, there's got to be a point in time where you're like, okay, today I'll people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel I'm the same way as I'm a human being, right? These people are human beings. Some days it is just like, you know what, I can't deal with this shit today. Keep them away. But to be like that, especially being a star, there's got to be a point in time where it's just like you have to accept who and what you are, and you know that's the life that you chose and you're living in. You're making hundreds of $millions a year being a star. The paparazzi are just going to be a part of it. You know, like look at Rob Dyrdek and look at some of these other big guys who aren't in music, but like, you know, and they're, you know, super genuine still, whether the camera's there or not. And then there's the other guys who, when the camera's not there and it's just paparazzi, they're pushing them out the way. You know.
Well, if you can imagine, I mean, at this point, I mean, he was at a height.
Yeah.
And you know, so your entire band, because it was Ronnie, Don Wayne, Dale, they were all playing in the band. They were playing electric guitars, and Don Wayne was playing bass, and you know,
Merle was just kind of the front guy.
Well, we're talking about Randy.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'm just talking about the stark contrast of even like what you were saying. Basically, if you can imagine this, your band's family shows up and we're like, hey, are we going to get to meet Randy? I mean, how cool, you know, just to say, hey, I mean, we weren't going to wear him out or nothing. But
yeah, but also
but
in that
then
situation, like
for him,
it's almost like cousin being like, "Hey, do you want to meet my family?" Like, of course I want to meet your family.
Yeah, and
like
and when you know Ronnie comes back and he's like, you don't really want to meet anybody.
Well,
Does that paint a little bit better picture of what went down? Because we're like, damn, y'all just sang "Digging Up Bones," man. I want to just shake his hand, and tell him I like the song.
There it is.
Oh, there's one.
Call.
You gonna answer it? He's been on the podcast.
yeah.
You can answer it.
Hey, Kenny.
How did Kenny go?
Oh, it went good. I'm just you're on the podcast right now. Tabby Hour podcast with Kristian. Say hey.
What up?
I'll call you back in like an hour.
I'll be at the climate gym. Yeah, just or we could talk tomorrow.
All right, I'll holler at you later.
Big catastrophe after I talked to you, and I just wanted to see what Mimi's biggest fuck up is. And
I think we have to
All right, we might have to edit that one out.
goodbye.
I'll call you back. We definitely cut that.
Yeah, so we got to figure out how to bring that back in.
What were we talking about?
All right, hold on. I'm gonna hold my phone back up.
I'll just, you know what? I'll just cut it.
No, I'm gonna hold my phone back up, and I'm gonna pretend like Kenny just said hey to everyone. All right, Kenny. I'm gonna holler at you later. Bye. All right, sorry about that. As usual, podcast always got to get a phone call.
Yep.
Every time.
So where were we? We were
Randy Travison.
Randy Travis. Yeah, but I think I pretty much finished that thought. You know, that's one of those.
So
that was actually a good ending point right there. It might be a good
What was
cut
your?
back.
What was your? Did you answer the starstruck? I think you were kind of getting to it. Have you ever been starstruck by, like, because you were 7, 8 years old in those early stories. Like, has there ever been somebody in music that, or in anything that you've met that you're like, I'm about to meet, you know, Tiger Woods, or like, not that those guys aren't
No, I
huge
know what
names,
you mean.
but
No, I know what you mean. And the answer would be, that's actually a really good question. It's just making me think about it. And I would say no. I would say that I always thought it was cool.
yeah,
But they always
you were
seemed
kind of
like
immune to
real. They were real people. So I was kind of trained. These are just real people.
yeah.
Even my mom always used to say that her mother would tell her, she'd say, you know, just because they had a TV show, the Don Reno and the Tennessee Cut-Ups, or Reno and Smiley and the Tennessee Cut-Ups, and they had a TV show they did in, you know, where they lived in Union, Buffalo Union. And
South
so,
Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Like where the drag strip is, Union?
Yeah, it was, you know, sponsored by Piggly Wiggly. Or no, it was Kroger. Excuse me, it was Kroger Hour. And so they would, you know, play music and do skits and things like that.
Well, and that was a
And so-
time in the world where being a local celebrity was actually a pretty big deal because
Yeah.
there wasn't the internet.
Right. And so my mom was like, her mother always told her, just because your daddy's an entertainer don't mean you're any better than anybody else. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
you know. But yeah, like what you're saying, it's just one of those where I've met enough of them to know, oh, that's a nice guy, and I've met enough of them to know that's a jerk. You know?
Yeah, that's cool.
He's arrogant. But then again, you know, I'm from Spartanburg, so you know, I had Paul Riddle teach me drum lessons. I mean,
crazy.
you know, I'm not like, and there's a bunch of people in Spartanburg that's had, you know, Paul Riddle drum lessons.
Favorite band that came out of Spartanburg. Who is it? There's only one.
Oh,
You cried in my bosom during the show.
Oh, that's a fun story.
So you said you're
there.
you're into a
That's
lot of
Marshall
different,
Tucker Band for everyone who's listening who doesn't know.
you said you're into a lot of different music. We've actually had on the show Seti D, who's a rap artist out of Spartanburg. Are you into the hip hop rap space?
There's
at all?
one.
Who are we talking about?
It's who's D's buddy? He's your buddy too.
Oh, the one
My
from
backpack's got jets. I'm Boba the Fett.
Excuse me while I clear my throat, right?
God, who is that?
I hate that you said that because you caught me way off guard because they actually got a documentary out about him now on Netflix. He's from this area.
Who?
The one you're talking about.
I know who. What's his name?
Oh, man.
MC Chris.
Oh, no, that's a different one. That's not the one I was
Oh,
thinking
okay.
about.
MC Chris is the one I'm thinking. That's your buddy, isn't it too? Or no, is that just D's?
It might just be D's.
Oh.
I think that's D's. But
Neon
I
and all
do.
them know
But
him,
I do
too.
like hip hop. I mean, I love hip hop. You know, I mean, as a matter of fact, one of Hayseed's biggest hits was the whole what's the Snoop Dogg song? Smoking on Gin and Juice. Thank you. So they've got their version of Gin and Juice, and that took off. And you probably maybe heard it and just don't realize it.
My favorite remake of that is the Gourds.
Wait, so somebody that wrote Gin and Juice?
No,
No,
they
no.
did
Yeah.
It was Hasty Dixie that did
They
a
covered it.
bluegrass version of Gin
covered
and
Gin and
Juice,
Juice.
and
Okay.
it's really good.
Cool.
It is a really good version. That and the Gourds version are my two favorites.
Yeah, it's really good.
And the Gourds is more Americana. Same, Americana, bluegrass, same category of
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it all comes back down to beats and rhythms and melodies. I mean, it's still music, so that's kind of gets back to what I was saying about as far as music's concerned. And that's what we were talking about earlier. You're like, which one could you go with or without? I can't because sometimes I've got in the studio, I've got an acoustic piano, and it's called a Chickering. It used to be my wife. She got it when she was trying to learn piano growing up. And so I put it in there. I tell her, I was like, if anything happens to us, I'm keeping the piano.
Just
That
so you know,
chick-
this isn't a prenup.
It's a Chickering piano, and that chick will let me play her anytime I want to.
Which one?
The piano.
Love you, Amy.
Yeah, we love you. So I'll sit and play, and sometimes it clears my head, and I can get thoughts.
I mean, I don't.
You know?
Anyone who works in silence is an insane person. I mean, my favorite music. I love live music. So Nugsnet, YouTube. I always have. If I'm listening to music, I want to listen to it live because it's the most pure form of music. Right? You have a studio album. They're great usually, but if you can watch, Humphreys or, I'm a big jam band guy. If you can watch these guys live, the experience level is through the roof. Where someone like a hip hop or whatever, their studio album is going to be the purest form, most raw. But even bluegrass, like those guys are jamming now, where it's not just playing chords, playing a song. It is elaborated into this musical presentation, this performance that, for me, elevates my mindset, just like you.
Well, you feel like you're a part of the experience. Whereas, and I get what you're saying, but even growing up, I mean, I had an Atari ST-100 back when MIDI music was really just kind of getting going, and so I could write the music, and this thing would play it for me. And then I'd even hear a lot of my friends say a lot of the same things you say. You know, well, you can't play. Even my family. You know, you can't. Yeah, I mean, you got to play it for real. Even my uncle now, he's like, no loops on this album.
The vocal soundtrack, that vocal pedal, your Nashville
Oh,
girls.
the Nashville girls. No, none of that fake stuff. It's all got to be real. But there is a lot of realty to that. I mean, that's still a creative, you know.
It's a tool.
It's a tool,
To circle
and
back
you're
around.
making music, and so technically it is being played live because it's being played by a computer. Which, back to the AI thing, it's just a tool.
Well, Kristian, we hate to cut it. But as always-
Unbelievable stories, man. It was great to get to. It's my
it's
first
fun
time meeting
coming
you.
on.
Now we're friends, and I look
Nice.
forward to coming out and seeing the band and hanging out.
As always, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast. A final cheers, a take home for everyone. One piece of knowledge to spread to the world, Kristian, in one sentence if you got it. Put you on the spot.
Learn to play piano.
Yeah, I got a buddy, and I love what he always says. He would finish certain things we do with this, and it's just basically the left lane's for passing.
You heard it here.
Cheers to
everyone.
that.
Cheers.